I think a lot about the relationship of movement history to where we live today. And not too long ago, I was thinking, I wonder if we have the kind of infrastructure for justice now that resembles what got Assata Shakur to Cuba. And you imagine, again, leapfrogging over history, the Underground Railroad, the infrastructure that got us out of to Cuba. What infrastructure do we need now that connects places in a way that we can be cover for each other? And I also think about, what does it mean to create autonomous art and justice infrastructure to move our ideas around and move them through and with each other, right? Like in a time when, like I said, the attack on our imaginations is one of the primary ways folks are being controlled. To create a network is the kind of radicality and practicality for this time.
I would appreciate an opportunity to be a thought partner in developing a program within Roots that really seeks to understand how we can prototype different types of actions which really facilitate this idea of Roots members being in each other's physical spaces. What give Roots its strength, it's that cultivation of those relationships. And truly, what's the outcome we're looking for?
When I talked to Ebony Golden about this before, I think what I'm interested in is what's alive in anyone's practice. And she talks about, well, it's about getting free and freedom. And I've often thought of this network of spaces that I know. Where are the places that I can go to be alive and to be free?
Of being called to this place and being able to bring the resources together to hold and steward this place in this particular period of time. And so with that privilege comes the responsibility to share it. How do we create more structure around that so that it's accessible to more folks, not just people who are in the know, for instance, but how do we create more structure? How do we find resources to help support people to come?
Siloing the arts is not the way you do a small space or even a large space. But that one art form often feeds another, because theater is ultimately collaborative.
I think it's a lot about figuring out where is the equity in who has space, because that's another question that we all need to talk about. Like, so are we talking about one space, only spaces by rooters, or are we talking about mission-aligned organizations who have spaces? Because even in our own home, we are aligned with mission-aligned people who have spaces. So we're a little cohort of spaces. And so I think that's the question I would want to know is, how is this equitably distributed, you know?
I guess what I know best is that I have a house in Lawrenceburg, Tennessee.
I am the builder of Azul. It's a 501c3 organization. And we also have people that camp.
We were donated 2 houses. One we used as office and workshop space, and the other we actually housed actors. We actually housed people who are working with the ensemble.
We have 2 small private spaces that we use for artist residency support. One which we call the Artist Enclave.
Like right now, I have a 2-bedroom house, and one of the bedrooms is open because roommates, like my last roommates, just haven't worked out, and I should get another roommate to cover the rent, but I don't really want another roommate. But I'm like, if rooters could come through and stay there, that would be great. That wouldn't be a workspace, though. That would be more of just the living space.
We've been in relationship to a bit of land in Kentucky since 2007, and the land called us, The land called us there. It had been a community gathering place for many years prior.
SIP Culture is a nonprofit organization who is running this residency program as a program of their nonprofit. They have a program called the Ripple Artist Residency, Rural Performance Lab.
Sarah mentioned Cox, or Kristen Cox, who has Respite in the Round, which is a artist retreat in Rougemont, North Carolina, like an hour north of Durham, that I know that they focus particularly on queer BIPOC people, like providing space for queer BIPOC.
So in Tampa, that residency space is actually in our home. Dora Arriola and I sometimes host artists that we know or are working with, some of whom are Roots artists.
Catapult is a center that has arts organizations, an indigenous radio station, an indigenous medicine making space, a design studio, and we're really now conceiving of ourselves as being less of just a live performance incubator, but a space for art, performance, social justice, mutual aid, and hurricane relief.
It was always supposed to be a community space. And it's been years and years and years of learning what that means and what that takes. And the thing that I think most about, especially in the rural South, is how to make rural spaces feel and be safe for artists, organizers, people of color, queer and trans folks. It's a combination of structural things like trees that shade the actual houses, but also deep community infrastructure of knowing who to go to should something happen. That I learned from someone who had hosted folks from Hurricane Ida was all kind of wonky things that happen when people bring their energy to a space. Like, I don't know, it's almost, it feels a little woo-woo, but people's anxieties manifest in a space.
In the wake of Roots Week, people visiting other Roots members to be in their workshop, to be on their land, to be in community in other places.
Connection in terms of not only internet, but ways for us to work with people who were in Senegal and work with people who were in Barbados, and that's a resource that I think is probably available at this point. If you can meet in that way. But I'm a theater practitioner. I think I want to see you. I want to do live work, but even when the resources aren't available, we can still collaborate. We can still do work, and that having these kind of centers, central, small or large. I've dealt primarily with small, but large centers should be included as well.
We want to be thinking about how do we create work exchanges and that sort of thing. It is a lot of work to figure out how do you train people to actually be able to do that. How do you meet them where they are with their skills? A lot of times it feels easier just to be like, oh, just come and don't worry about it. But then ultimately that doesn't end up feeling like there's like the reciprocity is complete there, right?
Yeah, well, I'm saying we never received any money for Catapult. So everything we did in the beginning was built on our own labor, extra time in the space and working. And that wasn't healthy, because when you're building a space, not everyone has the same skills. And so it was hard for us to learn and figure out who, well, these people are building the floor. Well, what if I don't know how to build something? Then what am I doing for the space? So it was, I guess I should say it was a learning process. There's not a lot of money for spaces.
The worst thing that can happen to these spaces is for them to sit empty.
The coordinator is a 6th generation Appalachian, which is very good because we try to also explain. We at the beginning of the potluck, we always announce the land, the Native American land that we are on, but then also we talked about the Appalachian culture that might be stressed at this point by too much input of tourists.
We have people come individually. We've had people come as many as 500 or 600 at a time. That's definitely pushing the edges of what the land can sustain.
For Guylaine and Jean-Marie, visiting there, they were inviting me into their home. And, they structured that in a way that very much felt like an artist residency, and they employ it in that way. And it really shifts their thinking. One, to be away from home, but to be at home with family, because Roots members are family. So, being able to do a residency with a Roots member is to find this new home, and to be able to put some roots down there, because then you meet their community, you meet their friends, you meet their collaborators, you become a collaborator with their community, and those don't go away.
Figure out what's the reciprocity, right? We have learned this term from many dear ones in our lives, this concept of sacred reciprocity. So what's the reciprocity when people come to be on the land? What's the reciprocity with the land? What is our reciprocity with one another?
I think the honest answer to that question is the space radiates from the center out in concentric circles. So the first thing that it did was it created space for us as companies and as groups to have our own space, to work on our craft in a different way. That was something that the visual arts, I think, really understand, and I never knew as a performing artist, but Jeff Becker and Lisa Shattuck and many people who were involved in that space were like, you have to have a studio. So then when we started having the studio, we obviously wanted to make it available to our local community, and we definitely witnessed the way that the companies who are working on their art in that space and their ideas and their dialogue and our community building, we were getting better together. And then when we finally were getting ourselves on our feet, we decided that, yes, this resource needs to be available to local, regional, and national, and sometimes international.
I recently did a residency at Paradise Garden, which is the space that outsider artist Howard Finster created in Summerville, Georgia.
Almost 3-week residency at a place called the Helper Art Space.
I'm actually really interested also in international residency opportunities and exchanges. I think in the United States, sometimes artists are very isolated from what is happening globally in aesthetics and global conversations. But even more so, artists in the South tend to have less access to travel abroad or to exchange with other international artists. So as we build this dream, I'm currently in conversation with artists who are developing residency spaces in Portugal, in Lebanon. Dora and I have often talked about having a space in Mexico eventually, and being able to expand our conversations and our aesthetic practices beyond not only the South, but beyond the borders of the United States.
My experience in Roots has been one of collaborative exchange.
Each resident is also interviewed by the coordinator, then come, and that's a thing that most of the residents are interested, because they see themselves on a little movie at the end. Then we put on a newsletter, then appear every month.
Cultivating relationships between the artists. I have people that were in Guylaine and Jean-Marie's community that I worked with while I was there, who have called me in the wake of that to have conversations, to play out ideas, to further construct and develop together. And I think it could really be a next phase for Roots to imagine what does it mean to facilitate our members becoming regional citizens of the South.
And what we realized is that artists would tell us, no, I don't, maybe I don't need money right now. I need space. I need time. I need technical resources. So what we've tried to do is develop a program where anyone can come and be paid to be in the space, to build and create their work, to share it with community, and then to maybe bring it back in the future. So yes, it's benefited a lot of people in our network, and since a lot of people in our network are from alternate roots, yeah, it's created a like really simple and easy condition to like you come in 1 week, you've presented your work in New Orleans, and you can keep touring, or you're here with us for 6 months, a year, and just in residency working on an idea. So the scale is rather large.
Sharing and supporting, you know, and like, I don't know, I'll speak for myself. You know, I've, as a first generation of immigrant parents, I've never fully felt myself completely here, or I haven't felt fully seen here until I started sharing parts of my culture. And then I was like, oh, they see me for all of me, because I'm complicated. I have layers. I'm complex. I don't just speak English. And so I feel like by those exchanges, right, by those moments of sharing, I have indeed been able to, that is in itself being like solidarity. It's like, yeah, it's like I'm being seen because I'm sharing a part of me, and I feel supported and seen, and I have a feeling that other people feel like that too.
Yeah. Yeah. If we're going to talk about how people are able to live, it's not the way money moves, particularly in this empire, we'll never have enough to make that, right? So we're not gonna, the world's not gonna wake up and suddenly everybody's a millionaire. Like everyone's gonna have everything they need, but in different ways that might not involve money. So how do we create from what we have something else that meets the resources and needs for folks to live a freer life?
So some support with like infrastructure to maintain the spaces, given everybody, more use, people's different energies, everyone being prepared for some sort of displacement is really wise.
To create more connective tissue between these community members so that we are in a more responsive, ongoing conversation about our movement together.
So we have a pretty good list of places that have infrastructure already.
But if Roots was looking for a network of places for people to stay, and Roots could cover housing for people, like they pay me whatever the cost will be for people to use that room.
So we really touch mostly people that at least can pay the little amount of money that we charge, but it's still a lot of money for some people.
In some cases, it might be that we need to find resources to give them, right?
I could see Roots assisting with providing opportunities to Roots artists by forging partnerships with some of the spaces that offer artist residencies. I could also see that partnership taking a financial.
So it has been a challenge trying to figure out how to keep our programming over that time and pay for the art and the creativity and also pay the bills.
Well, I think, again, Roots is not only a resource and a connecting point for artists who want to work together. The spaces and places are always under funded, and sometimes you just need someone to take an interest in the project, to be that seed supporter so that you can reach out not only to other artists but also to other funders. So I think that Roots can provide that seed and provide that connection so that we can build these spaces in our communities, not directly with Roots money, but with Roots support.
So some of the things that come to mind is I remember when Roots had a touring roster, and there were certain subsidies that people could receive to support artists in another place or in another city. I think we often don't remember how much $2,000, $4,000, $5,000 can do to create the conditions where you can make sure that an alternate Roots artist is supported if they're on this little circuit of spaces.
I've also expressed to Roots leadership that I'm interested in having a conversation about artist fees and what it really takes to support artists in the development of new work. And I don't think that should be only for performing or presenting. It should also be for the creation process. And, I look to programs like the Creation and Development Fund of the National Performance Network. That to me kind of sets a field standard that we could look at.
There is also obviously the time and space to connect all of us who are stewarding spaces to get together and talk together. And that type of exchange I feel like is so valuable. So when I come to Roots and I get in these dialogues with other people, I've gotten to visit all kinds of spaces around the South. And every time I go, I learn more. But Roots as a sort of convener of ideas together, that's always helpful to me.
With what I've been learning with this network of house sitters or whatever, the trusted house sitters thing, even though it has a whole process of applications and background checks and things like that, I still feel weird when I have a stranger coming into my house. I do. I just do, right? But it's worked lovely already once and twice. It would be amazing if there would be a similar network, but within Rooters, where you're not necessarily buying land, buying houses, or you're more than anything, you're creating this network that's providing an exchange of support. Call it service, call it support, whatever it is. But like, if someone is traveling and needs a place to stay, and the other Rooter needs their plants watered and their dogs cared for and their house just like lived in, then that exchange is, what a beautiful exchange, and it's through a network that you already have a relationship with most of those people. But I think that having something like that, because a lot of Rooters have pets, a lot of Rooters have plants, a lot of Rooters travel, and a lot of Rooters have homes, and a lot of Rooters don't, right? And so there it is, right? Like that's the web.
We do this informally already, but how do we amplify it and make it more powerful, and strategic? Right? Like, who needs to go from where to where? Who can't do the art because it's not safe there? Like, we could really build something. It's not even a decision. It's like, let it be. To give all of what creativity could be in this moment, all of what imagination could offer us to the change of the world we live in, to give that movement, freedom of movement, is one of the things Roots can do now. I think that would just reestablish its visionary self.
So it would be really exciting to see if we could do exchanges or even a kind of series of residencies for an artist or project over the life of its development, say, that might include Art to Action and Azul and other spaces,
Joe Talbert had talked about using one of the spaces as a collaborative space, as a small gallery space. I think that my model would be Rosie Gordon-Wallace and Diaspora Vibe, who have a small house that is both a residency and a creative space for working artists, visual artists. And I think those things can be done in collaboration with theater artists and actors.
We got a very small grant from the National Performance Network to actually support the artists' expenses. We were only able to do that for 4 artists so far, but we hope to be able to gain more funding to be able to not just give free space, but actually help pay the costs of that residency time, including, of course, travel, food or per diem, and if we can, artist fees if they are working on a project. But we're also really interested in being able to support artists to not have to produce a deliverable, but actually just have time and space to be in creative process on the time that their work organically takes, and to have support for that.
I'm going to share an example of an organization in Mississippi who created a program with the intention to incubate new working relationships between artists and organizations. The organization could be a nonprofit, it could be a for-profit business, it could be a church. There wasn't a lot of parameters on that. Just that it was an artist and an organization who had not worked together, who wanted to build a relationship. And they had a $1,000 award where $500 went to the artist and $500 went to the organization.
Cox started to grow the seed of evacuation networks.
I think there's the potential of a partnership between Roots and social justice organizations who may not have considered working with artists in the past, but that in combination with Roots resources could be developed into some sort of an artist residency opportunity or possibility. Roots is all about partnership and sharing power and all that sort of thing.
So that's what I'd like to see Roots do in this idea of networking spaces that already exist among Roots members and organizations, and that both within the South and beyond the South.